Now that we have an idea of what a business is, satisfying consumers' wants and needs for some sort of monetary gain, let's try and think of a business as a linear relationship. First of all, we have some inputs. We get some things, we gather some resources. We then do something to them. That's called the transformation process. We do something to those inputs. And out of that process, the transformation process, we get an output. And it's that output that we're going to sell for money, and it's going to satisfy the wants and needs of our consumers. So let's drill into those three chunks of that process and into a little bit more detail. First of all, you have the inputs. I quite like the economics definitions here, so I'm going to use those. I think they're helpful. They're not called inputs, let's call them resources, or let's call them factors of production. You've got things that are naturally occurring from the ground, let's just call them land. These are things that you might grow from the ground or things that you might dig out of the ground. I'm thinking about things like water, things like metal ores, things like natural gas. Okay, those are all naturally occurring things. Then you've got capital. Now be careful, capital can have quite a few meanings in both business studies and economics. In economics, it definitely means a man-made resource, not something that's naturally occurring, but something we've had to make, like a factory or some sort of automated machinery or a tool or an equipment. In business studies and in colloquial usage of the language, capital can also mean very high levels of investment, okay, money basically. Investment technically is any money that's being spent on capital goods, so you can see where the overlap is coming from. But capital, think about capital as machinery, machines, factories, that sort of idea. Then you've got the labor. That's people. That's people like you, me, and anybody else on the planet. We're the labor, we're the workers. And then fourthly, final of all, it's the enterprise. Enterprise is a less tangible thing than the other three. It's not something you can necessarily hold or you can feel. But it's this idea that those resources on their own aren't going to do anything together. They're not going to produce any output that satisfies anybody's needs. What you need is you need someone. You need an entrepreneur or even a risk-taking entrepreneur. That's a far better definition. A risk-taking entrepreneur who's going to get those resources together and then do something with them to satisfy the consumer's needs. That's enterprise. The transformation process. The transformation process is really all about adding value. And adding value is another one of those key concepts in business studies, certainly in the early stages. The idea behind adding value is that whatever the value of the inputs was, it's going to be higher, or rather the value of the output is going to be higher. You are doing something with those inputs that's going to make that output have a higher value than those inputs. So let's think about something like vegetables. Some like carrots or potatoes and onions. Let's use them as our inputs. Then let's do something to them, and at the end, maybe we get a canned soup. Well, that canned soup should cost more than those inputs. It'll probably only cost marginally more because we haven't really done that much to them. And also, what is it that you're really buying with that can of soup? You're buying convenience, because anybody can take those vegetables, put them in a pan of boiling water, and then after 20 minutes take them out and blend them and get the same soup. Okay, so anybody can do that. You're really only buying convenience, and therefore you're not paying you're not paying a huge amount of money for that. That's why a can of soup probably only costs about 80p. On the other hand, you could take those same inputs, those same ingredients, you could do a transformation process, and maybe you could sell that output as a £15 starter dish at a very exclusive restaurant. It's £15 now because you've added a hell of a lot more value to those ingredients. First of all, you've got the exclusivity of the restaurant. Maybe you have the fantastic consumer service. Maybe you have a celebrity chef or even celebrities in your restaurant. So people are paying for the environment, people are paying for the atmosphere, and people are paying for the experience as well as paying for the ingredients and the soup dish. Finally, then there's the output. The output is pretty much self-explanatory. That's the thing that somebody's buying, the consumers are buying. That's the thing they're spending money for. And as we said, that output, if this is going to be a profit-making business, that output has to cost more than the inputs. So there you go. A business has a linear relationship. Inputs or resources go into some sort of transformation process and come out as output. And it's that output that we sell to our consumers in order for them to satisfy their wants and needs. Good luck.